Blinds.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Gauravani Sacharane Nirvite Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Gaura Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Rama. So this is the second part of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. There are technically two parts to this work. And yesterday we discussed the first part, which is the story of Narada Muni searching for the person who has the most mercy from Krishna. And this is the second part. It's actually, when it's published by BBT, the second part actually is divided into two parts. This is very long. And so, this is a work by Sanatana Goswami, a major work. Another major work of Sanatana Goswami is his commentary in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, called the Brihad Bhagavatam. And based on that, and Jiva Goswami wrote another commentary called the Madhu Vaishnava Toshini, the 10th canto. And another work is the Hari Bhakti Vilas, which is attributed to Sanatana Goswami and Gopal Bhakti Goswami combined. So this is one of his major works, all about, it's a glorification of Krishna, basically. So in the first part, there was a discussion between Parikshit's mother Uttara and Parikshit, and Uttara inquired about what's the whole essence of what Sukadev taught to Parikshit. So then he discussed this whole story of Narada Muni and what is the essence of mercy. Okay, so now we go to the second part, in which Uttara begins by describing the different types of people that follow scriptures. So first we have the householders performing karma yoga, and they do pious acts, and they do nitya, naimitya, and kamya karmas with the goal of attaining something within the three worlds. In other words, they want some enjoyment. So even in the Bhagavad Gita, there's a mention of nitya, naimitya, and kamya karmas. So nitya karmas means daily activities which are obligatory for the people in the varnashram system, particularly the grihastas, and they have a lot of daily activities they have to do. So they have to bathe in a certain manner according to certain rules, and if they're twice born, that is, they've taken Upanayana and got the Vedic Gayatri mantra, then they have to do the Sandhya Vandana with its rituals 3 times a day, and they have to do the householders have to do the Agnihotra. There's a daily fire sacrifice they're supposed to do, which is actually practically only the Brahmins would do that, but technically they should all do it once they've got their thread and they've got their Gayatri mantra. They have to do Shraddha rites, they have to do samskars, and things like that. But those are not nitya karmas. The nitya karmas are daily things. Naimitya karmas, those are the periodic activities like Shraddha rites and samskars and other things. And then we have kamya karmas. Besides that, if you want, let's say, children, or you want a son, then you do some specific activities like sacrifices to get a male son, etc. like that. That's called the kamya karma. So these types of activities are typical of the householder, and particularly the nitya and the naimitya karmas, the obligatory acts. The kamya, you can do them or not do them depending on your desires. So the householders do those activities and they want to go to somewhere in the three worlds later on and get some higher material enjoyment. If the householders do those same acts without desire for results, and they're simply doing it as a matter of duty, without trying to get to enjoyment out of Svargaloka, then they go higher than Svargaloka. They go to Mahaloka and higher places. If, in the meantime, by doing all this they become completely pure, they can also get liberation. If you have desires for birth, desires for material enjoyment, you have to take birth again and again. And if you're nishkama and just doing swadharma to teach others or whatever, then you can get liberated after your enjoyment in upper planets. So we have all the planetary systems, and generally people want to go upwards from bhuloka. And the more detached you are, the higher you can go until you get to satyaloka. And if you're complete detachment, then you can get liberation. And generally they don't want to go downwards. So, other persons who are not householders, they may be lifelong brahmacharis, they may be vanaprasthas, or they may be sannyasis. They don't have to take enjoyment, they don't want enjoyment anyway, so they go to Mahaloka, Janaloka, Tapaloka, Satyaloka, etc. So that's their destination. And then she describes how you can go for liberation, either gradually or in stages. So if you're very enthusiastic and you're very renounced as an ascetic, etc., then you can just quickly get liberation. Others who do yoga, they may go gradually from planet to planet to planet to planet, etc., and then later on they can get their liberation. So, devotees, they can go gradually, or they can also go quickly. So they can also go to the upper planets, and then from there, they can go to Vaikuntha. Follow the Vidyabhusan. He describes how those who are devotees but have a slight attachment to doing their karma yoga activities, their nitya and naimitya kriyas, then they will get gradual liberation. They will go to higher planetary systems, and then from there they go to Vaikuntha. Yeah? And of course, if they have no attachment at all, and they're just doing it as an example for others, then they can directly go to Vaikuntha. So, devotees can go either way. Either they have some detachment, some attachments, they can go to upper planets. If they complete their whole process of bhakti with no attachments at all, they can go directly to the Lord. So, Vaikuntha is definitely preferable to upper planetary systems or liberation. And even the liberated souls find it difficult to attain Vaikuntha. So, then Uttara mentions the different types of devotees. There's devotees attached to knowledge. This, of course, is not jnana in the impersonal sense, so they're, in one sense, pure devotees, but they're a little more intellectual in quality. And those who are just practicing pure bhakti, those that have prema, and those who have intense prema, and those who have very intense prema, and they get closer and closer to the Lord. So the knowledge ones are called Gyanmis or Bhaktas, but they're not in a negative sense. People like Bharat. They have knowledge of the greatness of bhakti to the Lord's lotus feet, while understanding that liberation by Jnana is insignificant. So they're not interested in liberation. So this is distinct from the other type of Jnanamis or bhakti. And then the Sudha Bhaktas practiced in pure bhakti are persons like Ambarish. No mixture at all. They're just completely interested in the Lord. But then we have great devotees who have very intense love for the Lord. They've attained prema, and they're always engaged in service. And we have prema para devotees, such as Arjuna and the Pandavas. They're not even attached to bhakti. They're simply bound to the Lord by friendship, joking, some more closer attachment to the Lord, familiarity with the Lord. So there's intimacy in that relationship. And then we get Prematura Bhakti, very intimate. Uddhava and the Yadavas, they're closely associated with the Lord, and they see the Lord more often even than the Pandavas. So this prema is even more intense. So after describing these different types of people, then Uttara says, well, what about the gopis? What about the people of Raja? What happens to those persons? Do they go to Vaikuntha? There's different types of devotees, and it looks like how can they get the same result? Because the gopis and people of Raja have such intense bhakti for the Lord, so they just go to Vaikuntha. What is their place? That's her essential question. What is the destination of the people of Raja? If those special devotees attain only the same perfection as the others, my heart will be left discontent. For such devotees as Nanda and Yasoda to reach only the same destination, to me, the very thought is intolerable. She's talking about, on earth, and Krishna's with all the Brajavasis, and they show the most intense love. So they go where everybody else goes, or they get something better than that. So, in answer to this question, then Parikshit begins to narrate to his mother the story of Gopakumar. But as an introduction to that, to introduce Gopakumar, he starts out by telling the story of a Brahmana from Assam, Pragjyotisha, that's in Assam. Huh? And there's a famous temple there called the Kamakya temple. It's a Durga Devi temple. So in Assam there was a poor Brahmana. He was also very ignorant of the teachings of scripture, and he was hankering for some wealth. So he went to the deity there, Kamakya Devi, and he began praying to her, and then she became very satisfied with him, and she appeared in his dream, and she gave him a 10-syllable Krishna mantra for worshipping Madan Gopal. So there's actually Gopi Jana Vallabhaya Svaha, something like our mantra, a little bit shorter. We've got 18 syllables, it's only 10-syllable mantra. So anyway, he got this mantra from Durga Devi, Krishna mantra. He didn't know what it was for, and she didn't explain the mantra either. So he was just chanting this mantra because he got this from the deity. And what happened is he gave up his desire for wealth. At least, even in ignorance, he chanted the mantra. And he got some inner satisfaction. So he didn't know about the what the final effect of the mantra was. He didn't even know what the proper sadhana was, how to do the mantra, because generally these mantras that you get through diksha, there's a specific way you have to chant them. You may have to do nyasas and mudras and other formalities before you even chant them for purification, and then you have to concentrate the mind, etc. Meditate on certain things. So he didn't have any of that knowledge, and there was no explanation given by Kamakya Devi also. So all he could do is chant that mantra. But he didn't know what the final result was supposed to be, because he was very ignorant. So he left his home in Pragjyotisha and his family, because he was completely detached by the nature of the mantra, and he began wandering around the holy places, the tirtha places, and he would beg in order to maintain his body. Then on the Ganga, he saw a group of brahmanas, grihastas, seemed to be quite learned, and they were very dedicated to doing their prescribed duties. In other words, they were very varnashramaka, doing karma yoga. And he listened to them, and they were glorifying these nitya, naimitya karmas, etc. And what the result of that? So the result of that was going to Svargaloka, just as Uttara had mentioned. If you're attached to the results of these things, you can go to Svargaloka. So he was listening to this. So he listened to that, he respected those brahmanas, but because he respected Kamakya Devi's order to chant the mantra, he still chanted that Krishna mantra to himself privately. So in other words, he did japa of the mantra. That was his main sadhana, but not he didn't reveal this to those brahmanas. So he was chanting in this way, and then he became very dissatisfied with these brahmanas and what they were saying. He was not really interested in, those activities for going to Svargaloka, another type of material enjoyment. So then he went to Kasi, and Kasi is very famous because there's many impersonalists there, and they were describing all about liberation. And they said, oh, liberation is so easy to get. You can just take it in your hand like this. And then he became enthusiastic to get liberation. And he became interested in their discussions, etc. So we'd hear from them all about Vedanta and glorification of renunciation and liberation. So he would bathe at Manikarnika Ghat, where the Ganga flows in Kasi. He would see the deity of Shiva, and he would eat the tasty food there. And he did this for some time. But he continued to chant his mantra, and somehow he got attracted to Krishna, because that's the subject of his mantra, and the beauty of Krishna. And he experienced some bliss from that. And then he lost his attraction for bathing in the ghat there, taking sannyas or whatever, and hearing about liberation. And he became more absorbed in chanting his mantra. So the mantra had some good effect. It was not only detachment from material things, but he began to get attracted to Krishna, and then he had lost attraction even for liberation. So he progressed, even though he was in a lot of ignorance. So in the course of his chanting then, and his little bit of confusion because he didn't know what to do at this point, then Lord Shiva came to him in a dream, and he instructed him, don't take sannyas, go to Mathura. There in Vrindavan forest you will surely fulfill all your desires. So then Shiva acted. Of course Shiva is also presiding over Varanasi and Kasi, so he's also a Vaishnava. So he understood that this Brahmana was interested in Krishna, so he advised him to go to Mathura and Vrindavan. There you'll have your desires fulfilled. So he began to go to Mathura, but on the way he had to stop in Prayag. He's going up the river there, and he went to Prayag, and there he met some Vaishnavas, and they were worshipping the deity, the Madhava deity there. And he saw that deity, but then even though it was Supreme Lord, he felt that his deity was different from that. Or his Madhava Gopal was different because it was Krishna. So he didn't think the two were one. And he think, well, my Lord is takes care of the cows in the forest, and this deity is something different. My deity has a flute in his mouth and is decorated with forest ornaments. This has other ornaments. So he didn't think that the two deities were one, in spite of the fact that it was a Vaishnava. So then the deity Madhava gave him some instructions. And he said, well, you have to remember the words of Shiva. Husband of Uma, go by the path along the shore of the Jamuna to Sri Vrindavan. So you go to Vrindavan. So this is the same order that Shiva had given. So then he took up that order, and he came to Vrindavan, on the eastern side of Keshi Tirtha, where Keshi was killed. And there, he heard somebody crying in the forest in the woods. And he was wondering what that noise was. So he searched out that noise. Finally, he found a very handsome young man, and very tender body, dressed like a cowherd boy, and almost looking like Krishna. And this is the person who was actually doing kirtan. But his voice, he thought he was crying in the forest, and so he was doing kirtan, crying out the Lord's name. So the Brahmana said, only by your mercy have I met you here today, a compassionate, all-knowing person. You are just like my worshipable deity, and I'm very happy and satisfied to meet you. Now please deliver this wretched soul. So he was remembering the words of Shiva, that Shiva had said, you go to Vrindavan and your desires will be fulfilled. So this was Gopu Kumar that he saw, the young cowherd boy. So Gopu Kumar was thinking, all that remains for him to achieve is to see directly the lotus feet of the Lord. He needs to become attached not so much to the solitary chanting of the Lord's mantra, but to the sankirtan of his names. So, up to this point, the Brahmana had been doing mantra, that is the Diksha mantra given by Kamakya Devi. He had not been doing kirtan or sankirtan of nama. So we see here that there's an emphasis more upon sankirtan, chanting the Lord's names, than on chanting deity mantras for realization. So this is what he's pointing out there, that you shouldn't just chant your mantra silently, you should actually loudly do sankirtan, chanting the Lord's name. And this is how his attraction will become greater and greater, and the Lord will appear. This worship is produced by reverence and affection for the many places of Gopal's pastimes, places one should regularly visit. So, this is another principle that we follow, that in order to develop one's attraction for the Lord, one should live in the pastime places of the Lord. And this will remind one of the Lord's Leela. And this, of course, is mentioned in the Nectar of Devotion as one of the 5 principal elements, living in the holy Dham. So along with chanting, we have living in the Dham of the Lord. And so this is Gopu Kumar's thought. And Gopu Kumar, of course, he tells this story, and he actually was born there as a person, before he was a devotee. And then he got initiated there, and he got a Diksha mantra also. And then after that, he began wandering around everywhere. But then he would come back after his final realization. He had come back to Vrindavan, and that's where he met this Brahmana. So then Gopu Kumar thought the best way he could educate this Brahmana was to tell his whole story. So the rest of the book, up until the very end, last chapter, I think, is the story of Gopu Kumar. He tells to the Brahman. So he was a cowherd boy, and he had been living there. And then he met this person who became his guru. So then this person said, "My dear child, if you want to fulfill all your desires, please bathe at Keshigat, and then accept from me this mercy of the Lord of the universe." So then Gopu Kumar bathed, and he gave him that 10-syllable mantra, same mantra, 10-syllable Krishna mantra. And of course then Gopu Kumar began to chant that mantra, but he also didn't get any teachings from his guru. The guru disappeared. The guru was going to explain everything, then he went into ecstasy, and he couldn't say anything, and then when he recovered, he disappeared. As he was about to explain the method of worshipping with the mantra, but as soon as he mentioned the object of meditation, Krishna, he was overcome by pure love of God, became confused, started crying like a woman is separated from her lover, and then he recovered and disappeared. So he didn't get the teachings. So he was somewhat like the Brahmana, no teachings, but he got the mantra. So he respected his guru's words just as the Brahman had respected Kamakya's words, and he began chanting that mantra. Somehow he would achieve the Lord of the universe by that mantra, and that was enough to begin the process. So he began chanting very earnestly. In both cases, we see they actually got Diksha because they got the mantra, secret mantra. And that it was a very simple transmission, no ceremony at all. They just got the mantra, that was Diksha. So, Gopu Kumar began chanting the mantra, and he also lost his attachments for everything. So he left his family members and whatever, left his home, and wandered around on the bank of the Ganga. Very similar to the Brahmana. So, on the bank of the Ganga, he met a poor Brahmana, and he was worshipping a shalagram. And then the Brahmana said, and he was interested in that worship, so the Brahmana said, "If you're eager to see the Lord's opulence and the great festival of his worship, Please go to the capital city of this country's very saintly ruler. He is attached to the worship of Lord Vishnu in great love. You'll find his city not far away, and there you can behold the Lord of the universe, who's so difficult to see. So the promise of the Guru was you can see the Lord of the universe. So then this Brahmana says, you want to see the Lord of the universe, you go to that temple in the city of the king, and you can see that Lord very nicely. So Gopakumar went to that city, and he was very satisfied. He saw the nice worship of the Lord there in the temple, and he was quite satisfied. He took the prasadam, and he says, my life is a success. I should never go away from this place. So he lived there. Then, the king of the country was sonless. And then the son, the king, noticed this Gopakumar, and he became attracted to his good character, and he became affectionate to him, and then he adopted him as son, and then he died. So then, Gopakumar became the king. So he inherited a big nice city like that. So it was a little bit peculiar because he's just a cowherd. Why suddenly he was a king sitting on this big throne? And so he just began to arrange for more elaborate worship of Vishnu, the deity there. And he made arrangements for feeding all the people that came. This was a very charitable thing to do, to feed all the people that came, all the visitors. So he would distribute prasadam to everyone. But he never gave up chanting his mantra silently, quietly by himself. And he would only eat the prasad of the deity. So this was good, I could say, inspiration for him to continue. But he became a little restless with this ruling a kingdom because he was not attached to material things. So he divided up the affairs of the kingdom and handed them over to the relatives of the king. Even he did that. When he stayed there, he could not give up his connection because people would respect him as the king, a former king, whatever, and bother him in many ways. And then he also saw something which didn't agree with him, and that was when they had the prasad. If an outsider touched the prasad, or went outside the temple, or they thought it wasn't pure, then they would reject that as prasadam. So he didn't think that was proper. They think that prasadam had become impure because of being touched by a low caste person or something like that. So he was a little bit dissatisfied with that aspect of the worship. So then some devotees from Puri happened to come to that place, and he heard them talking, and they talked about Purushottam Kshetra, that is Puri, on the blue mountain, that is Niladri, on the shore of the salt ocean. So, and they described Jagannath, Lord of the universe, and he's manifested in a wooden form. And then they described that the prasadam there is so holy that it can never be contaminated, and the devotees will take it in any case, even if it's touched by a low caste person or whatever. It's prasadam, so they will take it. So that made him very happy, and he became very eager to see Jagannath. So they described how even the donkeys have 4 arms there, and anyone who simply enters the district will never take birth again. So they glorified that place. Of course, these are also things mentioned in the scriptures, so they were not exaggerated, but they were quoting the scripture. And it looked very attractive to Gopakumar. So then he went to Puri. And when he went to Puri, then he saw the wonderful form of Jagannath, or Purushottama, with his broad eyes shining brilliant, his forehead decorated with tilak made of gems. His complexion glowed like a cloud full of rain, and the effulgence of his dawn-colored lips was all attractive. Moonbeams of unlimited satisfaction emanated from his smile, adding to his beauty. So he was very satisfied to see the form of Jagannath, quite different from the other deities he saw in the kingdom, but nevertheless very satisfying. And he was so eager that he rushed towards Jagannath, but then the Purohit said they stopped him, so you can't go. They prevented him from getting closer. So he was satisfied on seeing Jagannath, and he thought that now his chanting had been fulfilled, that he'd seen the Lord of the universe. And so he became indifferent to the chanting because the Lord was there, and he was happy living there. But then he thought that I should serve the Lord more intimately, not just looking at him. But he couldn't do that because all those services were allotted to certain people. It was a very rigid system there, and they wouldn't allow other people to do those services. So only certain persons could do certain things, whatever. So he was always longing to do some intimate service for the Lord. Because he couldn't do that, he felt great pain. While he was there, then suddenly he saw his guru appeared. And so he met this guru, and then his guru gave him some instruction because he had lost interest in chanting. So this chanting, please understand, is another form of service to Lord Sri Jagannath. So chanting is also service to the Lord. Have faith in this and never give up your japa. By potency of this mantra, may you live a long time. May you always have the form of a cowherd boy, and may you develop the right mentality for tasting the mantra's fruit. So these were the benedictions given to Gopakumar, and we see later on that they came true. That he would get a cowherd form eternally, he would live forever, and he would also develop the right attitude for meeting Krishna, etc. So these are the blessings given by his guru. By chanting this mantra, he could attain this. So therefore the mantra was very, very powerful. So here the guru actually explained the goal of chanting. Previously the Brahmana didn't get any explanation about what to do with this mantra. He simply chanted it. But here Gopakumar's guru is giving a specific goal of the chanting. So he lived there chanting and seeing the Jagannath and watching the service to Jagannath. He was very satisfied. He would chant his mantra, taking darshan of the Lord, following the order of his guru, and he hoped that the blessings of the guru would come true and he would, get his eternal form, etc. Then the king of Puri passed away, and his eldest son, he didn't want to take up the kingdom. So the ministers asked Jagannath what to do. And then finally, on the advice of Jagannath, they found this Gopakumar and they made him the king. This was Jagannath's order. So the people, the Purohit said, went to him and they said, you have to become the king on the order of Jagannath. So then he became the king. So he was, of course, nice because he could do service for Lord Jagannath by arranging festivals, etc. But still, he couldn't really participate directly because he was just a newcomer and he wasn't a traditional, servant, etc. And he was also ruling the kingdom. And therefore he was a little bit distracted from the spontaneous ecstasy he previously felt when seeing the Lord. And these duties of a king disturbed his heart a little bit. So he also began to feel a little bit unsatisfied with being the king. When he would hold big Rath Yatras and other festivals, he was surrounded by the entourage, all the followers, the royal followers. But he couldn't really be happy doing that because of all of the kingly duties. So he renounced the kingdom and gave it to the other sons of the king, the ministers and relatives of the previous king, and then he became uninvolved and he just looked at Jagannath. Then Jagannath came and spoke to him. he was dissatisfied. He didn't want to stay there anymore. So then Jagannath said, why constantly lament, wavering between one decision and another? Just go to Mathura, and in time you will surely see me in the form you desire. So actually, Gopakumar had come from there originally, and then he had wandered around and come to that kingdom, and he came to Puri. And then so Jagannath said, you go back to Mathura again, and then you will see me, you will see Krishna there. So, chapter 2, knowledge. So he went to Mathura, came to Visranti Ghat, then came to Vrindavan. He wandered around the different places like Govardhan. But then he thought, I want to see the Lord of the Universe. And then he was looking around and he didn't see him in Mathura. And then he again remembered Puri, Purushottam Kshetra. And so he went all the way back to, he started going all the way back to Puri again. But on the pathway, on the Ganga, then he met some brahmanas who were fixed in their religious duties. And he heard that actually, above the earth, there's a place called Svargaloka. A very, very wonderful place. And he says, there, the Lord of the Universe is present in person, son of Aditi, that is Upendra or Vamanadev. So, Gopakumar said, wow, I can see the Lord personally in Svargaloka. So he began chanting his mantra to go there. And suddenly, an airplane came and took him to Svargaloka. So he got his desire fulfilled by chanting his Krishna mantra. He went up to Svargaloka. And there he's able to see the inhabitants there and Vamanadev. So then, and he said, well, my desire is fulfilled. I can see the Lord of the Universe finally, directly. Yeah? Before it was only deity form, or Jagannath. Now he saw directly the Lord of the Universe. And so he would offer his obeisances to him from a distance. And then the Lord called out to him with a voice of compassion. So the Lord actually recognized him and encouraged him. Then one day, Indra, because he violated the wife of a sage, he had to run away. He hid himself somewhere. So the Devatas didn't know what to do. So then they were ordered by Vishnu and their spiritual master Brihaspati to install Gopakumar as Indra. So then he became king of heaven. And Aditi, the mother of Indra, approved also. So, and then he became king of heaven. So, in spite of being the king of heaven, then he still chanted his mantra. And he wasn't able to forget Vraja, Vrindavan. He's still thinking of Krishna and Vrindavan, even though he was in Svargaloka and he saw this Vishnu form. So then he found out that actually the Lord is not always there. He was, Upendra Vamana was there with him, but he couldn't always see him. And so therefore he said, maybe I better go back to Puri, where I can see Jagannath all the time. And Jagannath's always very affectionate. Here I see the Lord, but then he disappears and I can't see him. So he was a little bit dissatisfied. So he ruled the post of Indra and had to spend one celestial year of the Devatas, which is 360 of our years. So one day is equal to 1 year, kind of thing. So in this way, actually, when he came back, was much later on Earth planet, but it was just 1 year on Svargaloka. So while he was there, then some sages from Maharloka arrived. And he was a little curious about that place. What is this Maharloka? There's a place above Svargaloka. Because he didn't know there's anything above Svargaloka. So then they gave a description. Above this realm shines the world called Maharloka, attainable through the best of pious works. Even when the three worlds are annihilated, that world is not destroyed. So Svargaloka is destroyed at the end of the day of Brahma. it goes underwater. And then the Mahaloka is not destroyed. So it's considered superior. Endowed with such happiness, the Prajapatis live on Mahaloka, enjoying the greatest pleasures and directly worshipping in various places the Lord of Sacrifice, who is there in person as their master. So like Svargaloka, Mahaloka also has the Lord present as Lord of Sacrifice. So then Gopakumar thought, maybe I'll go to Mahaloka instead of Svargaloka. He chanted his mantra and he ended up in Mahaloka. Plane took him there, and there he was in Mahaloka. While the great sages endowed with pure devotion offered thousands of grand sacrifices, I saw the Lord of Sacrifice, the Supreme Controller, stand up brilliantly amid the flames of oblation and delight in his pastimes as the enjoyer of sacrificial offerings. So the Lord was there when they did their sacrifices. So he wandered around in the company of the sages there, and he saw the Lord there in all the different dwellings of these sages, because they were doing sacrifices in all these places. So there was no faults in Mahaloka, no sorrow, no apprehensiveness, nothing but festivals of sacrifice for the pleasure of the Lord of Sacrifice. But when they ended the sacrifice, the Lord disappeared. So there was unhappiness. When the Lord, and when they started another sacrifice, the Lord would appear, and then more happiness. So there was still happiness, and then the Lord disappeared, and the Lord would appear when sacrifice took place again. So it wasn't perfect. Okay, at the end of 1,000 yuga cycles, that is one day of Brahma, the lower planets are covered with water, Svargaloka is covered with water, then the flames start burning, and Mahaloka is not destroyed, but it becomes very hot because of the fire, the flames. So the sages have to leave and go to Janaloka from Mahaloka at the end of the day of Brahma. So they go up there, but then it's the nighttime, and they don't perform sacrifices at night. And so no Lord is there. So then going to Janaloka also not very satisfying, because in the whole night, even though it's not destroyed, the Lord is not there. So after the next morning then, on Mahaloka, he saw Sanat Kumar, who came down from Tapaloka. And then he was, Gopakumar was very surprised. And so he asked, what kind of happiness do they enjoy on Tapaloka? How many more are there like him, who people like Sanat Kumar? What kind of Lord do they worship? So Gopakumar was curious to see what was higher than Mahaloka. So he went to Janaloka, Mahaloka, Janaloka, and then Tapaloka. What's up there, he thought. Eager to see all these people for myself, I chanted my mantra with fixed attention, thus gaining great potency. I quickly traveled to that world. So he went up to Tapaloka. And there everybody was fixed in samadhi. Tapa means austerity. So people who do great austerity, very detached, they become inhabitants of Tapaloka. So they're all meditating all the time. They were all completely renounced like sannyasis, fixed in a self-satisfied life on celibates, full of achievement of all desires and served by mystic perfection. So they're like yogis, great powers. But there was no Lord there. My constant desire to see the Lord was not fulfilled here, and indeed by the influence of the company of the sage it seemed to dwindle almost to nil. So because of association, then he also lost the desire to see the Lord, because everyone was simply meditating. So he stayed there. He was attracted to their power, display of power, but then he kept chanting his mantra on the order of his guru. And because of chanting the mantra, he got some peace of mind, and he got some bliss. So because of that, then his desire to see the Lord increased. and he was saved from becoming impersonal. At the same time, because it was peaceful there, it was a conducive place to chant as well. So there's a whole discussion in this part. The people of Tapaloka, they begin to praise meditation and using the mind rather than seeing the Lord directly. They say, why do that? The mind is more important than anything else. When the mind is happy, all the senses are automatically happy. For the functions of the senses, speech, vision, hearing, and so on are included within those of the mind. So mind is the main sense. And if the mind is happy, all the senses become happy. So why you want to see the Lord? If you see the Lord mentally, that's enough. That bliss later continues in the heart even after the Lord is no longer visible to the eyes. So even if the Lord is not present, if you have the Lord in your mind, you can be blissful. So that's better than having to depend on sight to see the Lord all the time. So ultimately, the real bliss is coming from the mind, not from the senses, because even after the Lord has disappeared, you can be blissful by remembering the Lord in the mind. So the mind is the source of the bliss, not the eyes. And they say that we have 9 kinds of devotional service, so remembrance, smaranam, is the chief. Of course, we don't say that, we say kirtan is the chief, but the people on Tapaloka say smaranam is the chief process in bhakti also. So everything is offered to the mind, most important is the senses. And even from the mind arises all the ecstatic symptoms in prema. So using his mind, as yoga practice, then Gopakumar would see the Lord of the universe all around him. I saw him within and without his various forms, as if he were present everywhere before my eyes. So he used his mind, and then he could see the Lord everywhere. But when he was on Brahmaloka, on Tapaloka, then one day 4-headed Brahma came, riding on a swan. He was on his way to Pushkara Dvipa to visit his devotees there. So Pushkara Dvipa is Bhumandala, the outmost Dvipa, and that is ruled by, or the Devata in charge of that is Brahma. So Brahma was going there because the people there worship him. So Gopakumar then became curious about that place, the residence of Brahma. What form of the Lord is there? And so he understood that there's a Mahapurusha there. So on Tapaloka he began chanting his mantra and focused his attention in samadhi. And he opened his eyes and he was in Brahmaloka. And then he saw the Lord of the universe there, the Mahapurusha form of the Lord in Brahmaloka. He was huge, with thousands of divine arms, heads, and feet. He resembled a dark blue cloud and was richly adorned with suitable ornaments. He was an ocean of brilliant effulgence. His navel was beautiful like a lotus. Lying on the bed of Ananta Shesha, he enchanted everyone's eyes and mind. So a demon attacked and the Lord killed the demon, but still Brahma was afraid and he disappeared and he didn't come back. So then the Lord assigned Gopakumar to be Brahma. Once he was Indra, now he became Brahma. Of course he became the king of Puri also, but now he was a king of the whole universe, and he was Lord Brahma for a little while. So then he became immersed in Brahma's duties, and he couldn't enjoy devotional service to the Lord as he had before because he had all these duties. So again he became disturbed and anxious because of preoccupation with these duties of ruling the universe. While he was there was a big discussion among the different scriptures within the assembly. Brahma had his assembly there, and he was the Brahma, and then all the different scriptures were there.
So all the Upanishads were there and other scriptures. So they began discussing and debating among themselves. So the discussion was about liberation. And many of the Shrutis and Upanishads said that you get liberation by knowledge only, jnana, nothing else. But then some of the great Upanishads and some of the Agamas, that's Pancharatra scriptures, then they said that devotional service can give liberation independently of jnana. So you can get liberation by bhakti, not just by jnana. So there was a big argument like this taking place. And some of the Upanishads and Agamas, they actually didn't participate, they left in disgust. And then Gopakumar, who was then the Brahma, then he talked to these persons who had left, and they said, we who are dedicated to the Lord's devotional service, they sometimes discuss liberation, but only to encourage people to reject it completely. When we speak of liberation, we condemn it and everything that goes with it. So they're saying that actually liberation is not the goal at all. Even though bhakti can give liberation or jnana gives liberation, ultimately one should reject liberation completely. And so therefore, though the scriptures may speak of it, they're only telling people to reject it and go for something higher. The so-called happiness of liberation may be compared to the happiness of not being sick or the enjoyment of deep sleep. In fact, the very term liberation is a misnomer created by illusion, and it appears only to the ignorant. From even a shadow of the Lord's name, that's namabhas, if one somehow chants them but once, or if they merely enter the ears, liberation is easily achieved. So this, of course, is the conclusion mentioned in the Bhagavatam, in the 6th canto, where the story of Ajamil is told, where Ajamil chants the name Narayan accidentally by naming his son Narayana. All those karmas are gone. All those karmas are gone. Then he's qualified for liberation. So they say liberation is nothing for bhakti. So that's not the goal at all, but it's very easily achieved through the process of bhakti with no other support for anything else. The reality of pure self, Atma Gyan, is called Brahman. It is devoid of qualities, free from attachment, unchanging and inactive. Bhagavan is the super soul, absolute controller of everything. His body is the concentrated essence of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He is the ocean of superlative qualities. So Brahman and Bhagavan are quite different, even though in one sense they are the same. So the devotee doesn't strive for Brahman realization. He strives to realize Bhagavan because there's more experience of bliss there. So they also explain Achinta Veda Veda Tattva, contrary qualities, like having qualities and having no qualities, having qualities in Bhagavan, having no qualities in Brahman, conjoined in the Lord. So the Lord is both impersonal Brahman and he is also Bhagavan. At the same time, the Brahman is this one fraction of the Lord, one of his vibhutis. So therefore, we can't say they're equal. So there is difference between Brahman and Bhagavan also. His two beautiful lotus feet, therefore, embody concentrated essence of happiness. Those who realize him through pure devotion surely attain that intense bliss. The 2 feet of Sri Krishna are considered like a piece of sugar because they're joyful in the source of all joy. Brahman, however, is only joyful. It's not the source of all joy. It comes from Bhagavan. So devotion to the Lord and realizing the Lord is gives much more bliss than Brahman. The Lord understood that Gopakumar, when he was Brahma, was dissatisfied with that post. So then he gives him an instruction. Go to Mathura, your dearest pasturing grounds, to the land adorned with many places of my varied supreme pastimes. Doing sadhana there, you will quickly attain me beyond Brahmaloka. So go back to Vrindavan, and from there you can actually attain me beyond Brahmaloka and the spiritual world. So that's the instruction of the Lord on Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. I think we're, so where are we here? Oops. No, where are we here? Should we end here? It's now, is our time up? Yes. Anyway, yeah, I think we'll end here because tomorrow I got.
Maharaj, you can continue.
Huh?
You can continue, Maharaj.
Continue now?
Yeah. A lot of people came late.
Huh? They came late. Well. Oops. Bhajan. Okay. Okay. So this chapter is called Bhajan, or worship. So Brahma had, Gopakumar had been Brahma for some time, and so when he got back to Mathura, it was very, very different. Must have been some days of Brahma later. So, very, very different place, the whole world. But Mathura is spiritual, so it didn't change. Everything else changed. The whole world changed, but the same forests and mountains were there in Vrindavan and Mathura. And again, he met his guru. So, there his guru taught him rules for worshipping and meditating on the mantra. And he said, you will know everything taught and untaught in sadhana and sadhya by the power of the mantra given by me. So, everything in sadhana and sadhya means prema, in prema. So you will attain everything in sadhana and in prema by the power of the mantra. So in other words, he's encouraging him to keep chanting the mantra. So he was chanting the mantra, and then he got a spiritual body. And it was the same as his other body, his cowherd body, because that was the promise given by his guru, that you have a spiritual body the same as this body, his cowherd body. So he got a Gopakumar spiritual body. And he began traveling through space. He went upwards through the upper planetary systems to the sun, which is the door of liberation. So all the upper planetary systems, he got to the edge of the universe, and then he started going through the layers of the universe. So there's all the different layers of the different elements, like earth, water, fire, air, ether, light, etc. And each is 10 times thicker than the previous one. And those places are not vacant. They're full of enjoyments greater than Svargaloka, or greater than Brahmaloka. And so he passed through each of these coverings of the universe. So he went through the earth layer, and he saw the Supreme Lord in the form of Varaha, worshipped by the goddess Earth, Bhumi, and because Varaha lifted up the Bhumandala out of the Garbhodak ocean. So we have the form of the Lord presiding there is Varaha, and Earth deity Bhumi is worshipping him. And so he was invited to stay there, but then he said no, and he went further up. And he went to all the higher layers. So he went to the layer of water, and there he saw Matsya, who was the fish form, obviously. He was in charge of that one. And then he went to the fire there, and Surya was in charge of that one. He went to the air layer of air, Vayu, and there Pradumna was presiding. He went to the ether layer, Aniruddha was there. He went to the ego layer, Shankarshan was there, and he went to the Mahatattva layer, then Vasudeva was presiding over that. And they were all filled with great opulences. So one after the other, he went through all these different layers, after layer after layer. Finally he came to the most subtle layer of all, Prakriti, after Mahatattva's Prakriti layer. And there was Mohini Murti. Mohini avatar was the presiding deity there. And she offered liberation to him. However, He was also not really interested in liberation. So, beyond this place was a place called Mahakalapura. The place of liberation itself. So he got to this place and he became overwhelmed with ecstasy, but it was more or less impersonal. And therefore his goal of seeing the Lord almost vanished. Lord Mahakala had an effulgence, which was, just like Jyoti. And seeing that effulgence then tended his desire to see the Lord almost vanish. But still, he had this desire to see his deity, continued worshiping by chanting his mantra. And somehow or other, he was saved from impersonalism there. And there he saw Shiva and Parvati in this place called Mahakalapura. With festivals of singing, dancing, and so on, Shiva was giving pleasure to his companions, as in making them greedy for Supreme Lord's devotional service. However, those people there saw Shiva and Vishnu as non-different, the followers of Lord Shiva. And they would praise Lord Shiva as being non-different from the Supreme Lord, etc. So, and then finally, the Vishnu Dutas arrive. He sees the Vishnu Dutas come. And then Ganesh explains to Gopakumar about the Vishnu Dutas. These persons cherish only devotional service to the Lord. They travel as they please, spreading pure devotion everywhere. They save the devotees, Lord's devotees, from all fears, even at the time of death, as in the case of Ajamil. If the devotees have but once had Namabhas on the tip of their tongues, or the path of their ears. So these are the Vishnu Dutas. And then Shiva explains, only one who has completely perfected his religious duties, who was pure, who was done with selfish motives, can achieve the mercy of Sri Hari. If that mercy is multiplied 100 times, one attains the post of Brahma. If 100 times again, one can become like me, Shiva. And if one attains from the divineness more mercy than Shiva, 100 times more, one can go to Vaikuntha and become a devotee of the Lord. So he's explaining that the mercy of the Lord is necessary to get to Vaikuntha and become like a Vishnu Duta. So he's praising the Vishnu Dutas as higher than himself. Then the Vishnu Dutas begin to explain. If you want to reach Vaikuntha, then give up everything and with pure love practice the 9 forms of devotional service. Honor the Bhagavatam and other scriptures that tell of this devotional service. Hear from them regularly about the Lord's pastimes. So, hearing is stressed here among the different devotional practices. So, they also glorify Kirtan. Devotional service appears to new servants of the Lord to be a function of their own senses, body, and mind, so that such neophytes can engage in devotional service with relish, as they should. But great devotees fixed in devotional service do not think the services they do to be actions under their own control, but expressions of the Lord's supreme mercy without individual effort. So in other words, at a certain point, the activities of bhakti and kirtan become very spontaneous. So first of all, we do them with some sort of regularity, etc., thinking that our senses are doing them, etc. Later on, they spontaneously appear within the senses and the mind. Simply practice pure devotional service mainly in the form of Nam Sankirtan, with the hope of gaining the eternal contact with the Lord's divine lotus feet in Raja. So again, they are emphasizing Kirtan as the main process. We consider chanting to be alone the most excellent form of bhakti, better than remembering, which appears only in one's own turbulent heart. So
kirtan goes to other people. It's not just for oneself, whereas smaranam is only for oneself. So they are contradicting what the sages in Tapaloka were saying, that, smaranam is the best. So here they're saying kirtan is the best. Chanting harnesses not only the faculty of speech, which it engages directly, but also the mind and sense of hearing. And chanting helps not only the person practicing it, but others as well. So it has more advantages. If the sense of speech, which sets all the external and internal senses in motion, is brought under constant control, then the mind becomes stable and can properly engage in transcendental remembrance of the Lord. Remembrance thus develops as the fruit of chanting. So if you do chanting, then automatically you will develop smaranam and control of the mind, etc. So, of course, they don't criticize any method. Whatever the devotional method by which a man with true spiritual taste feels satisfaction and complete joy, that is the method saintly authorities deem most excellent and effective for him. It is not only the best methods, but the very aim of his endeavor. So they're not criticizing smaranam. Also, Sankirtan expands the joy of meditation. Meditation expands the sweet joy of Sankirtan. So they're mutually, they increase each other. In our own experience, the two methods fortify one another and therefore actually are one. So they find no difference between them at all. Sankirtan of Krishna's names is praised as the best and most powerful means to attain the treasure of Krishna Prem. It is like a potent mantra that can attract precious objects from a distance. So here, Sankirtan of Krishna's names are the best of all for attaining Krishna Prema, more than even the mantras of Krishna. According to some knowers of rasa, the real sign of a person full of prema is Sankirtan of the name. So one who's developed prema will do Sankirtan. He will chant the name of the Lord. The full force of spiritual pain erupts in him by the weight of his own love. The greatest mercy of Sri Krishna Chandra we have found is firmly established in you, that is Gopal Kumar, because even the arguments of the residents of Tapaloka could not dissolve your eagerness to see in person the Supreme Lord. So they're pointing out that Gopal Kumar was not swayed by the arguments about Smaranam being superior, and therefore the Vishnu Dutas are very pleased with that. And they say that you've got the great mercy of Krishna because you're not swayed away by these arguments. We everywhere find famous examples of how, by seeing the Lord with the eyes, one achieves his mercy and the most intense and excellent joy. To see him is the goal of hearing and of all the other ways of devotional practice. So we see that Gopal Kumar was very eager to see the Lord of the universe, because that was what his guru originally promised, and he went to different places. He went to Puri, then he went to Svargalok and the higher planetary systems, etc. And then when he got to Tapalok, he said, seeing is not so important, better meditation, and the mind is more important. See the Lord in the mind rather than, and be satisfied with that rather than seeing. But here they're saying seeing is very important. And so by seeing him, one achieves his mercy, and one gets the most intense joy from that. And of course, from seeing them, we begin to serve the Lord. So ultimately, that's the goal of chanting, meeting the Lord directly. So, then the Vishnu Dutas give an order. Honoring the order of Lord Shiva, you should leave this place at once. Go to divine Mathura, the place most dear to Krishna. So they also tell him to go back. He went all the way up, he went down to Mathura, and then he chanted his mantra, and then he started going all the way up, and then he finally meets the Vishnu Dutas. They tell him to go back down again. But now they told him you do chant the name of the Lord also, so it's something extra. Are we up? Time up?
Finish this chapter.
Anyway, we've got tomorrow and the next day also. Maybe I can finish it tomorrow. I'm not sure. Okay, any questions there?
Do all the devotees go through the same process? Or go
Not necessarily. You can go directly. You don't have to go all the way up and all the way down. This is more or less an illustrative story to show the various types of devotees and the various ways they see the Lord, etc. And also to illustrate that if one has attachment for Krishna, then he's not really satisfied with all these other forms of the Lord and all the other forms of devotion. He wants to directly meet Krishna, and nothing else satisfies him. As I said in the beginning, it was mentioned that one can go to Vaikuntha gradually and go to the upper planetary systems, and then go, if one has some material desires, and gradually one becomes purified, and then one goes. Or one can simply, if one is already purified, practicing bhakti and attains prema, then go directly to the spiritual world. He doesn't have to go different places at all.
If one decides to go gradually,
Mm.
is there a risk of falling back?
Well, there's always that risk as long as you're in the material world and you're not completely pure. Right? And at least it's delayed, it's a longer delay. So for one who is practicing pure bhakti, he doesn't want that delay. He would rather go quickly to meet the Lord directly.
in the beginning, Raj, you mentioned, this Brahmana got this mantra from Devi. So is she a Vaishnavi or
Is it? Well, yeah. Devi is the wife of Shiva. Shiva's a great devotee. Parvati is also a great devotee of the Lord. And now also, some scriptures explains that the Krishna mantra, each mantra has a deity. So the deity for the Krishna mantra is Durga Devi. So maybe that's why she's the one that's giving this mantra, because she's also in charge of the mantra.
even if you don't understand the mantra, if you chant, you still get the same result?
You can get some result, but better that you do have some knowledge, because that's why usually they say to get diksha and chant those mantras, deity mantras. You should have qualification. Now, in this case, we see the Brahmana got some effect with no knowledge, and even Gopal Kumar had not much knowledge, and he got some effect, but it's a little bit slow in that case. And that's why the name, chanting the name of the Lord is considered superior, because you don't require such qualification, and the effects are even more immediate. So even chanting once, you can get liberation or whatever like that. So it's more effective than the mantra even. And of course, namabhas, you can get liberation even. So if you chant purely, of course, that means you do need some knowledge. And it's only with that knowledge that you get prema. Without knowledge, you can get liberation. Well, you have to have proper knowledge about Krishna and bhakti, etc., to get to prema.
So even if somebody hasn't taken initiation, you get a Harinam mantra,
Yeah.
they can still get liberation.
Theoretically, yes. Yeah. They don't need initiation because nama is independent initiation.
So what is the difference?
But, however, they do need shiksha, some proper teachings. And usually that requires a guru sooner or later, a shiksha guru, not a diksha guru for that. However, in our sampradaya, generally we do both. We take shiksha, we also take diksha and get the diksha mantras, because the diksha mantras are useful for deity worship. And usually we combine the two processes. We worship the Lord in the deity form, and we also do Harinam, of which Harinam is more important for us, but we also have deities. So therefore we find even the Goswamis had deities, and Vishnu Chakravarti had a deity, Baladev Vidyabhusan has a deity also, in spite of the fact that the main sadhana is Harinam, Nam Kirtan. So the two processes also go together usually. But they can be done independently. In the case of Haridas Thakur, no deities, no mantra, just Harinam. And he's Namacharya.
When we are in the evening putting the Lord to rest, what is the best mantra we can chant to it?
For putting the Lord to rest. Oh, well, there are some Sanskrit mantras you can use, but basically it just means, please Lord, come down and lie in your bed and go to sleep. Basically that's what it means. So if you don't know the Sanskrit mantras, you can just chant, even in English or any other language, just request the Lord to sleep. But then you're supposed to utter your Diksha mantra. If it's Krishna deity, there's a Krishna mantra or a Guranga mantra like that. You should chant those mantras also, the Pancharaka mantras given at Diksha, along with that. So for deity worship, the Pancharatric rule is you should have Diksha, and you should use those mantras for worshipping the deity. So when you offer items to the deity like lamp, then you chant that Diksha mantra, the Krishna mantra or whatever when you're offering to Krishna. So Diksha is related to deity worship in its technical sense.
And in the morning, when the Lord is waking up.
Yeah. Same.
Same.
We say, please Lord, rise up from bed. It's time to get up. Utishta, which means just get up, rise up, rise up.
So what is the difference for a person chanting Hare Krishna mantra who's not taken initiation, one who's taken initiation?
What's the difference?
Yeah.
It would depend on the mentality of the person, I suppose, and their attitude and their, let's say, their convictions, that's all. Because technically, as I said, it doesn't, Harinam and perfection, prema does not depend on Diksha. It depends on your perfection of chanting purely the name, which would mean a Shiksha Guru, but not necessarily a Diksha Guru. But, of course, if you have a Diksha, the only difference would be that you're qualified to worship deities, which may or may not be your interest, because some devotees may not be interested in worshiping deities, just chanting Hare Krishna, so then they could get perfection that way. Others may be attracted to deity worship, so they would take Diksha and also use that as a opportunity for improving their chanting, whatever. So the difference is maybe participation directly in deity worship. That would be the only difference. Of course, the other difference we could say is that when you take a Diksha Guru, he also gives Shiksha. So you get the Diksha Guru giving Shiksha also. But then sometimes the Diksha Guru, you hardly ever see the Diksha Guru, he hardly ever gives you any Shiksha, so you depend on other people for the Shiksha also. So then he's not performing that function. His only function would be the Diksha mantra for deity worship.
But can you please explain the different stages of Nambas in Suriname?
Well, there's two types of namabas. One is no faith, which means in ignorance. We don't know about the Lord, or whatever. And it may be accidental chanting, as in the case of Ajamil. He named his son Narayana, so he by that he chanted the Lord's name. It may be joking. You just utter the name of the Lord in a joking manner to make a joke, or inattention. You just utter the name of the Lord, like, oh Krishna, I'm tired today, or something like that. This is one type of namabas, and if it's with no offense, then it can give you liberation. It can destroy all your karmas, as in the case of Ajamil. The other type of namabas is we have faith in the Lord, and we chant the name intentionally, not unintentionally, because we know something about the Lord, but we don't know quite who the Lord is. We may think he's a devata. We may think the name is a material sound. We may think the goal of chanting is go to Svargaloka or get liberation. So we're a little confused about the identity of Krishna, about the goal of chanting, about the position of the jiva. We chant and we merge into God, or something. We may think like that. So because we have lack of knowledge, then it's called namabas. And we can advance and get purified, but it's a slow process. But the end result is that we can get liberation, but we get more than liberation because we're doing bhakti and we have some interest in the Lord. But we don't get the same position as one who does pure chanting, that is with proper knowledge. And therefore, we don't get higher rasas. At most, we may get a weak form of shanta rasa with the Lord ultimately, after progressing gradually and getting purified. So the bhakti is weaker as a result. So better than that is to get knowledge through devotees, and then we can chant properly, and we reject all material desires for liberation and Swarga Loka and material assets, etc. And we concentrate on developing service to the Lord with no other intentions. So that's called pure chanting. So that's the most powerful way of, and quickest way to get prema.
One more. You mentioned how the Gokumar in the material body then attained certain stage he attained a spiritual body.
Yeah.
So how does that
That was the blessing, blessing of his guru, and then the blessing of the Vishnu Dutas. He could get a spiritual body somehow. His material body turned into a spiritual body. We see that in the case of Dhruva also. In the self same body, he went to a Dhruva Loka with a spiritual body after he left this world. Bhuloka, then he went up to Dhruva Loka and he had the same, a similar form, but obviously a spiritual form. And I think Narada Muni also the same. In the self same body, he got a spiritual body. So his material body changed into a spiritual body. Which means similar looking, but actually different because it's completely spiritual. Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj ki jai.